slightly delayed while we figure out a couple little technical glitches. Make yourselves comfortable, hang out, chat, and we will be with you shortly.
I think we're okay to start. Deputy Mayor, we're just waiting for one of our new directors to join us virtually, but everything else is good to go.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, everyone. My name is Deputy Mayor Emily Lutz. I am chairing the meeting today. Well, actually, I usually chair Committee of the Whole meetings, but you'll note we do have our mayor who is absent on medical leave for the time being. So I'm in the chair, and before I start, I'd like to thank staff actually for making this transition for my brief filling in really pretty seamless, and thank council for their patience while we work through the temporary absence of the mayor. So thanks, everybody. So today is Tuesday, November 21st. It's our regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. It is 9:02 a.m., and I'll begin with roll call, please. For those new to council or listening online, we do have a 10-second delay between which our motion or our request for councils to vote between when that is called and when the votes come in. You'll note all councilors are present with the exception of Mayor Matart this morning. At this point, I'd look for a motion to excuse Mayor Matart from the meeting, moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Meisner. Thank you both. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. Councillor Davison, did you, oh, you're trying to vote. You just hit your, did you have something to add?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. At this time, I would note we have a special council following Committee of the Whole due to the time-sensitive nature of several of the items on our agenda this morning. So stay tuned. Once we adjourn Committee of the Whole, we move into essentially what is just council under a different name and make decisions that way. At this point, I look for a motion to approve the agenda that's in front of us. Moved by Councillor Granger, seconded by Councillor Killam. Discussion on the motion? Additions, deletions, concerns about the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. At this point, I look for anyone who may have a conflict of interest on Council to disclose it at this time. No conflicts with the approved agenda. Wonderful news. Moving to item 4, approval of the minutes. Our last Committee of the Whole meeting was held on October 17th, 2023. I would look for a motion to approve those minutes as circulated. Moved by Councillor Killam, seconded by Councillor Granger. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify now. The motion is carried. Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes of October 17th, 2023? Business arising from our previous meeting? Seeing none, we'll move to item 6, presentations. We have several guests with us this morning. Thank you all for taking the time to join Committee of the Whole and to be here. We're excited to hear from you this morning. So first we have Becca Green-LaPierre from Kings County Community Food Council, joining her Roger Tatlock from the Basic Income Nova Scotia Society. And they're here to present on a case for the municipality of the County of Kings to support a basic income guarantee. So come on up to the podium right here. And the floor is yours. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the power. Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for letting us come speak with you this morning. Does this adjust? Or you've got a loud voice. We'll be okay. I just destroyed it. There, I'll make that more memorable for you all. My name's Rebecca Greenlap here, and I come to you on behalf of the Kings County Community Food Council. A few years back, our public health department and our community health boards identified food insecurity as an issue here in our part of the valley. And one of the ways we're trying to respond to that is forming this council. We do a lot of advocacy work as well as individual and community capacity building programs. But certainly we know that if you do not have adequate income, you will not have adequate access to food. So we believe that the most effective way of addressing food insecurity is upstream policies that bring about adequate income for all, which is why I'm here with you today, which is why I'm joined with my colleague Roger Tatlock. He's with us from Basic Income Nova Scotia. Together, Roger and I are trying to reach all the municipalities in the valley so that our local leaders can have a loud collective voice on this issue going to Halifax and Ottawa. So thank you, Roger, and I think Big NS is a very appropriate group for you to belong to. So we do come to you this morning with two asks. Roger and I feel so strongly that especially during this time when so many municipalities are dealing with poverty, and I know many of you were just at the NSFM, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. I know housing was a big topic there. Policing was a big topic there. And we know that income is connected to housing, homelessness, crime rates. And so we think that it is so important that during all these like mini crises, I'm even thinking of the pallet homes in Kentville and Wolfville and their student and housing populations. We know here in Kings County there's homelessness. We know that in light of all that, we need to keep our eyes focused on upstream permanent solutions to things like poverty and homelessness and food insecurity. And Roger and I think that something like a basic income is a very viable option that's a permanent way to address some of those. So I'm going to come back to this slide, but first Roger and I want to make sure that we're all on the same definition when we're talking about what is a basic income guarantee. In your counselor packages, you would have received something that says the case for basic income in municipalities. On the first page of that document, you'll find this definition. A basic income guarantee is an income-tested, targeted unconditional cash transfer from governments to individuals that enable everyone in Canada to meet their basic needs, participate in society, and live in dignity, regardless of their work status. A basic income guarantee would be a massively impactful upstream social policy investment. It'd be a major structural change in how we deal with poverty and a major philosophical shift in how we view poverty, how we view our neighbor. That could be a neighbor who's unemployed because they're taking care of an elderly parent. That could be a neighbor who's unemployed because there was a corporate takeover and they've been restructured out of a job. That could be a neighbor who's unemployed because AI, artificial intelligence, has made their job obsolete. A basic income guarantee would help all of our neighbors. Neighbors in precarious employment. It would help any and all Canadians. And the great news is there's a lot of researchers and advocates across Canada that are working on this. Coalition of Canada, who published this document, they were created in 2019. Basic Income Nova Scotia is one of their many members from coast to coast to coast. And they've helped create this common definition of a basic income guarantee, so we're all talking about the same thing. And they've also established these principles that would help guide the implementation of a basic income guarantee in Canada. In another document in your councillor's package, Coalition Canada submitted a brief to the Senate, the Standing Finance Committee of the Senate, and that outlines more clearly the guiding principles of how to implement a BIG. Some of them are on the screen. I won't go into all of them, but the Senate document in your councillor package details those guiding principles. I'm going to pass it on to Roger to talk a bit more about basic incomes in Canada.
So in the definition, you saw the word targeted. So some say that Canada has targeted basic income programs. And when you think about it, Canada Child Benefit for Families, Old Age Security, Guaranteed Income Supplement for Low-Income Seniors, And just this summer, the Canada Workers Benefit and the Canada Disability Benefit. These are targeted for specific populations. And these are federal programs. Some of you that have your ear to the ground will know that there are actually 2 targeted basic income programs in Atlantic Canada. In PEI, they actually call theirs a TBIG. It started in 21. It's for social assistance recipients 18 to 65 who are living independently but with severe limitations to entering the job market. The amount of money given is basically 85% of the market basket measure of poverty. And again, if you got your ear to the ground, you noted that on November 8th, Newfoundland announced that they're going to do a basic income guarantee for people between the ages of 60 and 64 that are on income assistance. So they're basically going to start them on OAS, GIS, before the age of 65, and then it will seamlessly go into OAS when they're 65. So, you know, our 2 questions are, isn't it time for a basic income guarantee for everyone in Canada that needs it? And isn't it time that it actually be a livable amount? So you're probably thinking, as municipal councillors, this is totally out of our jurisdiction. Why are you here asking us to get involved in this? And as Becca has alluded to, poverty impacts our communities, and costs of poverty are downloaded onto municipalities all the time. We believe that municipalities represent an important voice in social policy discussions at all levels. They are often on the front lines, working to ensure that residents and communities lead happy, healthy, sustainable, and productive lives. That's why we think it's appropriate to ask you to get involved in the basic income guarantee discussion by supporting our request. Why should you care? There's lots of reasons there. The case for basic income in municipalities briefly outlines some benefits we could expect to see in Kings County if all residents have adequate income to meet their needs. It is appropriate for you to ask me, though, why I think these effects will occur with the implementation of a basic income. My response would be, frankly, you don't really know until the basic income is actually implemented. But there are experiments and time-limited trials that are happening all over the world with basic income as we speak. And this is a list of some of the highlights that are being found through these experiments and studies. If benefits like this were not happening, there would not be over 40 different basic income programs in the state of California alone. Newfoundland would not have implemented their basic income guarantee a couple of weeks ago if they weren't achieving these types of benefits. And PEI would not be repeatedly offering to be the first large-scale demonstration of a basic income guarantee in Canada.
So we want to share a quote from HRM Mayor Mike Savage. A year ago, exactly around this time in November, there was an Atlantic Basic Income Summit. Actually, your mayor, Peter Matar, attended. It was a virtual event, and he attended. And I also know this quote was shared just a short 2 weeks ago at your NSFM conference. Mayor Mike Savage was one of your keynote speakers, and I'm going to say he dropped this line because it's just so good. The feds have the money. The province has the jurisdiction, but the city, let's insert Kings County or any municipality in Nova Scotia, the municipalities, they have the problems. So in your case for basic income in municipalities, which Mayor Mike Savage helped co-author, it does briefly outline some of those benefits that Roger touched on that we could expect to see in Kings County if all residents had access to an adequate income to meet their health, their housing, and their food needs. If you folks decided to pass a resolution in support of basic income, you'd be in really good company. On the screen here, to date, there are 9 municipalities in Nova Scotia that have passed a resolution showing their support for basic income. And that's 9 in our province. Atlantic Canada is leading the way. We've got a lot of other municipalities. Toronto, cities all across our country are showing their support for basic income. And Roger did the math here, and in our province alone, if we look at those 9 municipalities, that's representing the municipal representatives of over 65% of Nova Scotians showing their support for the concept of a basic income, which is pretty pretty loud, and so we encourage you to join in on that movement.
So our ask to council, that the mayor write letters to the Prime Minister and Premier asking for federal and provincial territorial governments to work together to create a national livable basic income guarantee, and that the mayor write a letter to the Premier and all MLAs with copies to the Prime Minister and Nova Scotia MPs, requesting that the province establish an all-party committee of the legislature to research and design the implementation of a livable basic income guarantee for all Nova Scotians. So basically, we're asking you to get involved. We're asking you to take a stand, not alone though, with a lot of your peers, on a really important topic at this point in our country. Councillors, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for what I know will be your thoughtful consideration of our request on a basic income guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind sticking around for some questions?
Happily.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to ask about your public engagement, because yes, governments are involved, but if people don't be involved in this, it cannot move really anywhere. And so the people that are affected need to be involved. Can you tell me a little bit about your public engagement?
Absolutely. So I can speak at a local level, and Roger can probably speak at more of a provincial level, if that's okay. I know we're working with community health boards, so if you folks are familiar with community health boards, they're mandated by Nova Scotia Health to kind of represent the needs of our communities. And in the Valley and in Western Zone, we have a lot of our community health boards who are writing advocacy letters on behalf of the people they're representing, saying that we need to have effective income policies. Personally, in my job, I get to work with food banks, so I'm going to the 4 food banks in our municipality, Berwick, Canning, Fundy, and Wolfville, talking with them about this. Some of them are kind of nervous to engage in advocacy, but the neat thing is Feed Nova Scotia, who they're all members of, they actually have a really strong advocacy campaign that they do this on behalf of our local food banks, saying that they are in support of a basic income. Our food council itself, we have members from Evangeline Club, your next speaker. We have members that are involved in schools, some small farmers. We kind of have a broad range of people that are interested in food and food systems and income. And I come on behalf of them. So we kind of have many backgrounds that are doing advocacy work in this area in our part of the Valley.
Basic Income Guarantee Nova Scotia is a really small nonprofit society, has a core group. Not coincidentally, there's a lot of old people in the group. I mean, once you've lived a certain life, you realize, oh my God, we need new solutions. So they come quickly to thinking about basic income. Their thrusts are basically conferences on an annual basis. You can see the fact that they have 9 different municipal units have already passed motions, so there's people in different communities. They have 3 thrusts in terms of their advocacy work. They're trying really hard to work within the municipal units to push up, to scream nice and loud and be heard. They're trying really hard to get all-party committee going in the legislature, because that seems to be a lever. That's what they did in Prince Edward Island. That's what they're doing in Newfoundland. Other provincial organizations are pushing to their provinces as well to get all-party committees going. And public outreach is hard, but I know that is something that happens on a regular basis. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for your presentation, and thanks for what you're doing. It's a great thing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I saw this presentation come through, and I also watched it watching Kentfield Council, and it's absolutely a laudable goal to desire to take people out of poverty, and seeing cash transfers from governments to individuals does seem logical. My understanding, though, is governments ultimately have no money until they take it from the pockets and purses of Canadians who are working, producing productive goods. So that makes me wonder, I've heard the why, and I absolutely understand the why and the need for the why, but I haven't heard enough of the how. How do we fund this? How do we make this happen so it's not another indicator, another cause, another addition to inflation and other. In economics class, I've heard everything else being equal as the great escape clause for an economics problem, but that doesn't work when you have many moving parts. So do you have an answer for the how it works, the mechanisms of where do we get the dollars, and how does this continue to work on an ongoing basis when it's not just a few trials, but a number of everybody are working under the same conditions?
Councillor Hurdle, thank you for asking that question. This is how far we've come in basic income guarantee discussions. It used to be, what's basic income guarantee? Oh my God, you want to give people money? People have got their head around the fact that basic incomes are happening now all over the place. Like I said, seniors, children, even people that are working and making less than $33,000 a year are going to get $1,500 from the federal government in the coming year. So I love the fact that we're now at, well, we'll accept that a basic income guarantee is a really good idea, but how are you going to pay for that thing? That's a great question. In the last 6 years, the Parliamentary Budget Office has studied this 3 times. The first study was initiated by Pierre Poilievre. The last study, the first sentence says, this report is being written in response to parliamentarians' continued interest in a basic income guarantee. The Parliamentary Budget Office models all of the costs that the Parliament is looking at absorbing. Parliamentary Budget Office says in $26 in the 2025-2026 year, they expect a basic income guarantee for those that need it to cost $93 billion. So we're not talking about 10 years ago costs. They're saying, you know, in the future, you're looking at basically $100 billion to fund this thing. The nice part is you can think about the offsets. So if you had a basic income guarantee, would you have income assistance? Probably not. All of that money would go in the pot to pay for the base. Would you give GST rebates? Would you give grocery allowances? All of those. So parliamentary budget says there's probably offsets in there that would bring it down to $50 billion. $50 billion is a lot of money. But contextually, think about the context of $50 billion. What does that actually mean? OAS costs $55 billion. Canada Child Benefit costs $23 billion. Last year they gave oil and gas $20 billion. So there, you know, contextually there is money being spent at this point in time. Can you reach into the pockets of medium wealth, low wealth people and take money out? You can't. That would be political suicide, really, in this culture at this point in time. So who has money? The banks have money. Large corporations. I'm not talking about the coffee shop in Wolfville. I'm talking about large corporations. I'm talking about multinational corporations. And there are wealthy people in Canada. The Thompsons that own Thomson Reuters, they're worth $47 billion. Joseph Tsai owns the Brooklyn Nets. He's worth $9 billion. So you'd have to really look at where the money is. People are studying this because it's going to happen, but we need to figure out how to pay for it. So there's a UBI Works in Canada. They're spending a lot of time studying it. And they're suggesting out of the financial sector, out of the large corporation sector, and out of the pockets of the most wealthy, that it's easy to come up with $50 billion. So just for example, in the financial sector, most financial institutions in Canada don't pay GST. In Quebec, they pay GST, and Quebec receives a fair amount of money from that. But all the other provinces don't charge their financial institutions GST. So I can give you some examples like that, but firmly, I believe that we can share literature with you where you would look at it and say, 50 billion, that's a lot of money, but look at all the other things they're doing for 50 billion. Maybe this is a doable thing. Maybe this can be done. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Councillor? Just questions?
Questions for those sources and references, and I would welcome those.
And we're going to send them to you. Thank you for your interest. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Question from Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Deputy Mayor, sorry. Just a question as to what is the basic income that would work for people to live on?
It's a great question. When Ontario did a pilot project in 2017-2018, they picked 3 different communities to run this pilot, and they gave folks an individual $1,400 a month. That was 2017-2018. We know that during COVID, folks that received CERB got $2,000 a month, so obviously Justin Trudeau thought $1,400 probably wasn't enough. We can't say exactly how much it will be. Again, with Roger's reference to the Parliamentary Budget Office forecasting, we're guessing it would be, between $1,500 to $1,800 a month, probably less than $2,000. But again, we're not quite sure. But we're anticipating to be around that, maybe around $1,800 a month. Can't say for sure. But the idea of having this income floor that no individual person drops below is.
Oh, sorry, Councillor. We're having, it's, and I'll turn mine off. It's just the video feed switches sometimes if there's too many mics on, so I'll turn mine off.
Thank you. I have looked into this a fair bit myself, and the concept is good and sounds like it could work. And the numbers seem to add up to the point where it would work without costing much more to the taxpayers. As was mentioned, OAS, and I don't know if Canada Pension has entered into the conversation at all, but
That'd be a definitely funded program versus an basic income program. Yeah.
But I believe this is a way out of a lot of the issues that we're dealing with right now. I don't mind making a recommendation to sending letters to these folks. I'll leave that.
We will, yeah,
Deputy Mayor.
We'll follow the
Thank
process.
you, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Councillor. Good notes. Councillor Meisner, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful to see you folks here. I know we had some great conversations at Diversity Kings County, so I'm very excited to see you here. And my questions weren't necessarily for you, but procedurally, to follow up with Councillor Killam, how we would make this recommendation. Can we take the recommendation that has been brought before us and use that that was on the previous slide, or how would that work, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so generally we don't address requests from presenters while presenters are here. We take some time to think about it at committee of the whole, but I expect what we can probably do is either have a discussion maybe in our next meeting of special council or council in December, and have this as an agenda item with a draft letter or something like that for council to look at and discuss.
Okay, and would we have to make a motion today for the draft letter, or we can just have that discussion?
I think based on, well, we could have the motion today, but I think we'll leave it with me and we'll.
Okay, thank you.
We'll make sure it does come back if there's interest from council.
Thank you.
Councillor Davison.
Thank you very much for being here this morning. That was an excellent presentation. I want to say that first and foremost. A lot of us were in Halifax for the conference last week, and we did listen to Minister Lohr speak, and the provincial government does want to be transparent with the municipalities. Their focus was for us to be more transparent, more open with them. I think as a municipality, I think that is extremely important. I think, yes, we're just the small portion of the government, but I think with our voice and all the other municipalities, we can certainly make things like this happen. Just with my son works at Sobeys, and there is a problem. There are people that have never stole a chocolate bar in their life that are stealing to bring food home. So there is definitely an issue. I think we should certainly encourage. I would love to encourage our council to look forward into this. It's funny, and listen to Councillor Hurdle as well, talking about money. At times when things break, somehow money is all of a sudden not necessarily a huge issue. When something is extremely bad that's happening in our province or country, sometimes the money's found. So I very much appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's extremely important, and I think that we need to be on board and back you with this. My question is, are the other municipalities getting the same presentation? Thank you.
Well, I know in the Valley, so Wolfville has passed a resolution in the spring. Roger Tatlock presented to them. Kentville. We hope to reach Berwick. We're kind of just moving west as we go. Basic Income Nova Scotia, we've created, we're going to call it like a toolkit that we're using as we go to municipalities, so that, whether, I'm a volunteer in Kings County or a volunteer in CBRM, we're having similar messages, similar slides, so that that message is consistent, so that the definition of a basic income guarantee, the guiding principles that would help its implementation, that we're recommending, that we're encouraging our various councillors to recommend are the same. And that's the lovely thing about working with Basic Income Nova Scotia, who is a member of Coalition Canada Basic Income, so there is that consistent message all from coast to coast to coast. It's a good question.
It definitely is the intention of Basic Income Guarantee Nova Scotia to reach out to all the municipalities. I think the hallmark of a really good councillor is that they listen. They're listening to what's going on in the coffee shops, what's happening around the kitchen tables. And when they listen, we want them to hear us hollering really loud. So, that's why we want to go to all the municipal units we possibly can. Yeah.
Any follow-up, Councillor?
No, thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Councillor. I have no more lights. Thank you both for being with us today, for your presentation, for the work that you're doing on behalf of the most vulnerable in our communities, and your continued advocacy. It's so important and so appreciated by all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Next, we have some more familiar faces in the crowd. Sherry Bain and Carolyn are coming up from the Evangeline Club to discuss the community consequences of inadequate funding for nonprofits, which is, we're quite familiar with nonprofits around this table, so we're looking forward to hearing from you. The floor is yours.
So I'm not going to be surprised if the folks sitting around the room can see the correlation between what we do as an organization and what the folks behind us do and what they're advocating for, how they're connected. My name is Sherry Bain. I am the club coordinator for the Evangeline Club in Berwick. Some of you might be familiar with the Evangeline Club because it's spent some time in Kentville and New Minas, and now it's in Berwick. It used to be an old Pentecostal church that the Evangeline Recreation Society bought 10 years ago and converted for our own use.
I think I can hear you okay, but just yeah, there we go. Just so it's pointing at you. There you
Your little clicky thingy.
Oh, there you go.
So the Evangeline Club has been in operation for over 30 years around the Annapolis Valley. We are a drop-in center for individuals who live with mental health difficulties, but not strictly mental health issues. We have folks who are experiencing homelessness. So in order to provide for the needs of the folks that we serve, we do a whole lot of things to help support and maintain good mental health. So every day we offer 2 meals, breakfast in the morning and a lunch made by our wonderful volunteers. And I'm just going to point out Joanna back there. She's been a long-time volunteer at the club. She volunteers everywhere. I think she also volunteers with the Food Council. So as you can tell, we offer great homemade meals every day, which is, for some of our members, the only food that they get. We have a garden in our back property, which we're trying to develop out so that we can build into, because we're serving food every day, it would be nice that we could grow our own and perhaps have enough to send with some of our members back to wherever they're coming from. We also provide social and recreational programming. It is enough to have a place for folks who are living with mental health issues and poverty to go, but we want to do more than that. We want to help people improve their mental health, help people develop relationships which help improve their mental health. So we provide programs 3 to 5 times a week. And our most popular at this point is bingo, so popular that we have folks coming from other organizations to come and play. We take occasional day trips out, but we really do spend a lot of time trying to foster a sense of belonging within our members, to help improve mental health, to offer nutrition, and we also offer things like showers and laundry facilities. Peer support. One of the things that I really appreciated about the Evangeline Club is that all of the folks, it's not a requirement, but as it turned out, all of the folks who work at the Evangeline Club have lived experience with mental health issues. So we're able to kind of fill a gap that's existing right now. The availability of mental health supports has had a significant decline since COVID. So many of the folks that we support are concerned about the fact that they can't just pick up a phone and schedule an appointment with someone in the mental health field because it's just not available. And what's happening is, for the time being, it appears that folks in Mental Health Nova Scotia and other organizations, they're offering services online or on the phone. And many of our folks aren't interested in that. They want to have face-to-face conversations with people, and that's one of the benefits of having a staff full of people who have lived experience, because we can often sit with folks and have conversations and speak to our experience about how we've managed to live with different situations. So it's a really big part of what we offer at the club. We also offer internet and computer access. Currently, about 30% of the folks that we're serving are unhoused. That number has doubled since the time that I started in April. So it's significant. We also offer weekend food support. We're a Monday to Friday operation, 9:30 to 2:30, but we have folks who leave our center on Fridays, and it's important to us that they have access to some food over the weekend. So we prepare, we call them weekend food boxes, but we prepare something for folks so that they can take away something. And we also offer an emergency winter shelter. We had been in negotiations about the possibility of being an ongoing shelter, not just in emergency weather situations, but there were a few criteria that we hadn't anticipated. So it may become a conversation at a future date, but for now, we'll be offering emergency shelter. So if there's a really bad storm and we need to get folks in for safety, then we have a partnership with Open Arms in Kentville, and Open Arms comes in after we finish our session for the day, and they set up to be an emergency shelter. We actually had our first night of emergency shelter this past weekend, Saturday into Sunday. We also were given the mandate of managing the Elaine Arsenault Fund, and that fund is available to any of our members who are, we recognize how important it is to be socially and recreationally involved in maintaining your mental health and your physical health. So this fund gives us the opportunity for individuals who want to pursue any kind of recreational activity to get the support through their mental health folks, and they can apply for $500 so that they can use to go towards recreational activity. So we're open 9:30 to 2:30, Monday to Friday. We serve in September almost 400 meals, and October 250. The average number of uniquely weekly visitors is 15, and this report, or this presentation was prepared a little while ago, and that number, as things have started to get colder, we're starting to see more folks start to access services. So I would say that number is a little bit higher now. We try for at least one structured activity per day. And these are some of the programs that we offer, but there's a whole lot more. In terms of demographics, about 35% of the folks we serve are from Berwick, 25 from Kentville, 10 from Kingston, Greenwood. So in other words, we have folks from all over the Annapolis Valley accessing services at the Evangeline Club, and I anticipate as it continues to get colder that we're going to see an increase in membership and an increase, obviously, in our services. 30%, a little bit higher, I think 30% of our members are unhoused. I think about those folks, and I think about this presentation that just happened, and you know, there's a concern about, you know, where does the money come from? How do we do this? We're already spending the money. It's already being spent. We're providing services for folks all over our country, to organizations to help provide for these needs. I think there'd be a reallocation in order to make something like big happen. This is out of date, but it's an example of what we're trying to do with other nonprofits around the Annapolis Valley. A lot of us kind of struggle with trying to complete our mandate because we don't always have a whole lot of money. And we rely on volunteers. So we gathered all of the nonprofits around the Annapolis Valley to have a conversation about what our needs are and how we can support each other rather than trying to ask for more money from folks like you. The intent, we're going to plan to create a resource where all of the nonprofits can take a look at what's available, and if we have something that another organization needs, for example, we don't have a van to take our folks anywhere, but Liberty Lodge has a van. So perhaps we can borrow from Liberty Lodge, and maybe we have something that Liberty Lodge doesn't have. So we're going to try to create a resource where we can borrow and use from each other. Sorry. One of the most important things, it's probably the most important thing in our mandate for club members, and that is creating a sense of belonging. When you can do that, you help avoid a whole lot of things. You help improve people's mental health, you help improve their confidence, you reduce things like mental health visits, hospitalizations. Some of our members were completely isolated. So they would spend their entire day home alone, watching the television, with their mental health declining. And obviously some of our unhoused members, it makes a significant difference to have somewhere to go and to feel like you're a part of something. We always try to give members the opportunity to learn some new skills. So we've done some woodworking, we've done some stained glass, we've done some twilling. We put the funds that we get for our programming to good use, and our members love it. What we celebrate. The Evangeline Club has had a little bit of an identity crisis. Maybe not, we're just not all that well known. Folks that have been around the valley for a long time would know of the Evangeline Club, but many people still don't, including people who live in Berwick. So it's important to us to kind of spread the word about what we do. We have exceptional staff, volunteers, and my apologies. Standing behind me is Dr. Carolyn Campbell. She is the chair of our board. We are very, very lucky to have her. She's exceptionally committed to the folks and staff. So when question period comes, if you have any questions that I can't answer because I'm relatively new, she'll be able to answer. We get financial support from the Department of Community Services, the Nova Scotia Health Authority, local foundations. We try to raise some money ourselves, but it's a difficult thing to do when you're trying to meet the needs of your members, and trying to fit fundraising in there is a little challenging. So what I understand of the club, even though we may not see huge increases in the numbers of people we serve, what we are seeing are an increase in very complex needs. So we're not just dealing with folks who are coming in with mental health issues, we're dealing with poverty, we're dealing with addictions, we're dealing with homelessness. So it changes. If we really want to serve our members, we have to change with them. Currently, 30% of our members experience precarious housing. We actually have 2 tents that aren't on our physical property, but are in the perimeter of the property that we own. People living in tents close to us for the time being. And it's a really difficult process for people who are unhoused, because they never feel like they can safely stay wherever they're at. So there's a lot of moving around, which creates incredible amounts of stress. It's cold. It's heartbreaking for me, but I'm proud to be a part of the Evangeline Club, where we can give people a little bit of light in their current situation. And I mentioned earlier, members are really feeling the loss of mental health supports. Some of our members have said that unless you live with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, you're not going to get help. Or you're going to be put on a waiting list for quite a long time. So places like the club become even more important. In the absence of services and supports for people living with mental health issues, the outcomes are never good. So places like the Evangeline Club are really important to help support those people who are in a really difficult time. And we're not unique, but we've struggled for a long time with insufficient funding. Some of our funding has not changed since 2013. And obviously, in that time, things have become a lot more expensive. And funding doesn't cover operational expenses. So trying to complete our mandate and maintain facilities with no increases is becoming more and more and more challenging. Less than 40% of our current expenditure is covered by secure, predictable, and long-term funding. We are so blessed to have the volunteers that we have, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. But, that creates some challenges of their own. Volunteers have lives, they're not committed to come. A good portion of our volunteer base is aging. So funding becomes more and more important. So we have significant staff turnover because we offer contract positions paid below the Valley living wage. That's not because they want to pay below the Valley living wage. It's because they have to in order to keep the doors open. Board members engage in day-to-day club operations as opposed to serving as a policy board. So when we have needs within the club and we don't have sufficient staff, then board members are stepping in, and that's not ideal. We have an inability to adequately address infrastructure needs. Because of our emergency winter shelter and an aging heating system, we're in this really tough position of trying to come up with money to replace our heating system to ensure that our folks can stay warm when they come to our emergency winter shelter. So nonprofits, over the last 20 to 30 years, there's been a significant change in how the provinces deliver mental health services, that kind of thing. There's been the process of deinstitutionalization, taking folks out of hospitals and different scenarios and putting them in community. But the problem is the funds that people would have gotten when they were sitting in an institution and the pay levels, they don't translate into the community. So community-based organizations like ours don't have nearly the operating budgets that say, hospitals have in order to take care of people. The current funding model requires us to compete against other nonprofits, which is a good portion of our funding comes from grants, which means we have to sit down every 6 months, take our precious staff resources to sit down and prepare grant applications in order to carry us through 6 more months of operation. And while we're doing that, every other nonprofit in the valley is doing the same thing. And then whoever receives those applications has to go through them and decide, okay, who's getting funded this time? In my opinion, it's an unfortunate waste of resources, and I think the model is definitely time for review. We can't plan long-term. We never know from one 6-month period to the next how much money that we're going to have and what that's ultimately going to mean to our members and staffing levels. So how can you help? Well, I think the biggest thing that you could do for us is to advocate to your colleagues and those in other government departments and levels of government about the fact that nonprofits are doing really important work that once upon a time was done by the province, and although it's wonderful that they're doing these things, they're just not giving us enough money in order to do it comfortably and knowing that you can do it long term. Your support ultimately helps us get nonprofit. Your support ultimately helps your communities, because we have folks coming from all over the Annapolis Valley to access services at the club. Just a little plug for the board. We're always looking for folks to help out. So there's our garden starting to bloom. And you can see this is one of the meals that we have at the club. Average day is anywhere between 15 and 20 members. I don't know why I was so nervous today. My apologies to all of you, but thank you for this opportunity. And I just want to say I'm really glad to kind of follow up the folks that came from BIG, because I think we're a pretty good example of demonstrating why the current system doesn't work, and why there is a need for us to reconsider what we're currently doing, because we have people who are unhoused, unfed, unwell, and we have no solutions other than not-for-profits who are picking up the work of the governments who dropped it. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherry. And no need to apologize to us. We get nervous too, sometimes being up here in our microphone. So definitely, you did a great job. Thank you. And thanks for your presentation. Questions of council this morning? Councillor Granger, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks for all you do and the good work you do in the community. I noticed in your funding sources that you didn't have the towns of Kentville, Wolfville, or Berwick. Is there any particular reason why you don't approach them for funding?
We have gotten little pockets of money. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to let you, because you really do the funding
Stuff, yeah. We're working on it. And the first thing I should say is I'm just going to look around. I don't know where it came from, but through the recent grants from councillors, somebody here did give us some support, and we're very, very grateful for that. Berwick Town Council does help us in kind to some extent in terms of taxes and sewer and those sorts of things. We've done a similar presentation to Kentville very recently. There's nothing specific coming from there yet. Before we finish today, I will tell you very specifically what we're hoping from municipalities and so on, but we're working on it, let's say that, yeah. Just, if I could just make another comment about the funding. Sherry made a brief allusion to the fact that our funding from Department of Community Services and NSHA has not changed since 2013. And so it's the same amount of money. And although I can't find this in paper, I do find it in my memory, because I was originally the first chair of the board some 32 years ago. Time does tend to repeat itself. And to the best of my knowledge, the amount of money that we're getting from DCS right now is the same amount that I negotiated 32 years ago. So our expenses have changed slightly since then. So.
Councillor Granger, anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, go ahead, question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to the presenters, thank you for all the great work you do. I just have one question. Do you have a minimum age that is required to stay in your shelters?
I'm not aware of a minimum age. The youngest folks that I've seen come through are about 18, 19, but the majority of our folks are, I would say, between 25 and 75.
I think it's important too, Peter, to distinguish between the programs that we offer during the day and the few times that Open Arms, basically Open Arms uses our facility as an adjunct shelter kind of thing. So whatever the policies that Open Arms has would also apply to that time that we do those shelter things during the night. But that's a very small part of what happens out of our place.
Sure, very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, it sounds as though you provide a sense of belonging to those who are your members, and that is a step along the path towards getting into a situation where you're able to be more self-sufficient. But I wonder, how does the membership work? Or is it a formal process, or is it just the folks who show up are then considered members?
Walk in the door, you're part of us.
That's fair. And do you have any outreach with social workers to help folks reestablish themselves if that's what they're looking for?
We don't have a lot of outside support. I think it's important to recognize that the availability of supports to people has changed significantly. And it doesn't matter whether it's mental health or community-based type supports. It's difficult for people to get that kind of support. So no, we don't have social work connections. Our members do, but for the most part, members are happy to come to the club and get the support that they need.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davison.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. Thank you very much for everything you are doing. Again, this is a feel-good day for me. I worked at Open Arms for 1.5 years, so I'm very familiar with what you guys do and what they do. Collaboration is, I heard you say, and that's a big deal these days. And I know that Open Arms has a van, and they're very, easy to work with. So if you ever need that, I would certainly get you to reach out to them and ask them about that, because their van is actually, it's gigantic, and I'm sure it can help you. In today's world, I don't think people realize what is going on in the Valley, in Nova Scotia, and in Canada. While I was working there, I had seniors coming to the door asking if we had beds available, if we had food available. And these were people that were hardworking people their entire lives, that were coming in their 70s to Open Arms and asking if we had food to give them. A lot of people are proud, and a lot of people will go hungry because they don't want to ask. So very much appreciate what you're doing. Mental health has been an absolute disaster the last few years. It always has been, but it's gone tenfold in the last few years. So again, thank you for what you're doing. My question is, I know you have to keep the heat on. Have you spoke to the local MP, Mr. Belois, about heat and the new heating program with the heat pumps?
So we're in the process right now of working with Efficiency Nova Scotia. And because we offer an emergency shelter, they're telling us that we're likely eligible for some rebate. We have a presentation planned for the Lions Club to see if we can get some money there. We have had a contribution from Community Culture and Recreation for a small portion of it. Is there anyone else? No. And you know, we're prepared, obviously, to use some of our own funds. The challenge for us with a limited staff, 1 full-time, 2 part-time, community outreach proves to be a little bit difficult, so we haven't approached a whole lot of people in terms of trying to get support.
Maybe if I can just speak to that a bit as well in terms of the political campaign. I've been chair of the board for about a year now, and a few months after I became chair, we did a lengthy briefing note that we submitted to Community Services and NSHA asking for increase in the grant funding for the 23-24 fiscal year. That was turned down. We didn't get that. We're doing it again. So we're actually right in the middle of the political campaign to do that right now. I do want to recognize the incredible help that Chris Palmer, who is the MLA for that district, has been to us. He's an ardent supporter, helping a lot with strategy and with very much day-to-day kind of things too. One of those day-to-day things, I'm not sure what time your meeting ends, but this is our political day. Minister of Community Services will be at the club for lunch from 12:30 to 1:30. Want to come and have lunch when your meeting's over, you'd be welcome to come. And as part of that, I've put together what I'm calling my magical thinking budget, which would be the optimal budget of what we'd love to have in order to have sufficient staff, to pay them a wage that treats them with dignity and respect. And we will be presenting that to the minister today. And it will also be going to Minister of Health and Wellness and the relatively new Office of Mental Health and Addictions. That is one of our asks, that you will soon be getting that package that has our optimum budget and our statement of needs, and it will have a cover letter asking for a letter of support to go to those people from you, if you feel that is something that you could support. We have not gone federally. I've not yet visited with Côte Blois. I'm not sure what funding programs federally we could opt into, but that is something that we should explore for sure. Yeah.
Any follow-up, Councillor Davison?
The only follow-up is I agree with you with Mr. Palmer. He's a great guy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
See the great work happening in real time. Anything further from council this morning? I would just like to say thank you. I've got no more questions. Thank you for spending your precious time, making the same presentation probably multiple times to multiple community groups. It's been a really eye-opening morning, I think, here this morning, and we often at council are talking about the ways we can help, and sometimes it seems from our perspective in our realm of jurisdiction responsibility, it can be hard to find those ways. So appreciate you, all of you, bringing forward suggestions and solutions and opportunities for us to consider, and we're really grateful for the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just process-wise, that packet that I'm going to send, should that go to you, Deputy Mayor, or to CAO, or?
We'll find a way to get it to everyone. Yeah, me or the CAO or the clerk
All
or.
right. We'll cover you. All right.
Yeah.
So come for lunch. Meet the minister.
We'd love that.
And not just your lunch, if there are folks that you represent that need support and they can find their way to the club, we're happy to help anybody that needs help in any way that we can. So if you help us spread the word, we can help more people.
We are all familiar with those people in our communities that do need help. So we'll be sure to pass that along. And I will say your advocacy campaign is doing a wonderful job, because I've heard more about the Evangeline Club, certainly in the last 6 months to a year, as someone who lives very close to Berwick and drives by it multiple times a day. Heard a lot more in the last year or so than I ever have. So you're
Thank
doing
you.
great work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's 10:05. I would ask for a brief 10-minute break to get some more coffee, and we can reconvene. Oh, we do have a quick motion before we go. That Committee of the Whole received the presentations from the Kings County, that's where we are, Kings County Community Food Council and the Evangeline Club as provided on November 21st, 2023 for information. Moved by Councillor Davis and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Discussion on the motion to receive the presentations. Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. Maybe it sounds like I don't need more coffee based on the speed I just read that motion, but the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We are recessed for 10 minutes, and we'll follow up with you folks as required. Thank you. to the agenda, but a little break. I'm going to invite our HR specialist, Kathy Nichols, to come on up and do some introductions before we get back underway on our agenda. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Deputy Mayor, councillors, and staff that are here with us today. I'm really happy to be able to take this opportunity to welcome 3 new members to our management team. We have with us today, over in the far corner here, Brad Kerrigan, the Director of Engineering and Public Works. Brad's coming to us from West Hands, where he was previously Director and Manager in the Engineering Department. Brad is a professional engineer, also has a professional certificate in asset management and an executive certificate in local government. And we're really happy that Brad has joined our team. As well, we have Zobia Javid. She is joining us virtually. I believe she's still online with us here. Zobia is our Director of Environmental Services and Climate Resilience. Zobia is coming to us from her last employment. She was a faculty member and assistant professor of engineering at McMaster. Zobia has a master's degree in civil engineering, a PhD from McMaster University, as well as her MBA. So really excited to have Zobia leading up our new division in engineering and public works. And also today we have Shivani Gaholtra here, our new manager of treatment plants and compliance. Here's Shivani, and Shivani is has her master's of applied science in civil engineering, specializing in water resources, her MBA in infrastructure engineering, as well her bachelor in civil engineering. I think I can speak for our management team and our staff here and council as well, that we are very excited and fortunate to have this group joining our team and leading our engineering and public works team into the future. So welcome to the new members of our management team.
Big welcome from council too. Thank you. Thanks for those introductions. And yeah, we're all available if you ever need to chat. We'll put it out there. Okay, thanks Kathy. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Yanni Postma, the municipal clerk, to lead us through item 7A on the municipal election 2024, our statutory requirements. So go ahead, Yanni.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good morning, Council. As I'm sure you're all very aware, our next municipal election is less than a year away. So definitely time to start preparing for that election. And there's, as usual, there are some statutory requirements that Council needs to make decisions on. So that's what I'll be covering today. Decisions that are required from Council relate to the advance poll day, appointment of the returning officer and an assistant returning officer, the list of electors, a date for amendments to the list of electors, and the tariff of fees and expenses. And these will probably look familiar to you because we covered those for the special election as well that we had in June. So municipal elections are held every 4 years on the third Saturday of October. So in 2024, that will be October the 19th. So first off, the advance poll day. There is one fixed day in the Municipal Elections Act that is to be an advance poll day, and that's Tuesday, the 4th day before Election Day, which in 2024 will be October the 15th. And then the Act requires that Council sets the date for one other advance poll day, and that can be either Thursday the 9th day before Election Day, which would be October the 10th, or Saturday the 7th day before Election Day, which would be October the 12th. And because October the 12th is during the Thanksgiving weekend, we're recommending October the 10th. I reached out to the towns of Berwick, Kentville, and Wolfville to see what their plans are for the other advance poll day, and they're also going to be recommending October the 10th. So that will be a little bit, clearer to voters when that advance poll day is. So the way I'd like to do it, if that's okay, is I'll read the recommendations, but perhaps we can do the voting at the end of the presentation, if that works for council. So the first recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council set the other advance poll day for the municipal election 2024 as Thursday, October the 10th, 2024, and that's per section 114 4B of the Municipal Elections Act. So number 2 is the appointment of a returning officer and an assistant returning officer. The Municipal Elections Act states that council shall appoint a returning officer and council may appoint one or more assistant returning officers. The returning officer is to be appointed on or before March the 15th. Council may delegate its powers of appointment to the clerk or the CAO, and we would like to recommend that the council delegates its powers of appointment to the CAO, and that will enable the CAO to appoint a returning officer as soon as possible. So there will be other municipalities vying for experienced returning officers, so we'd like to be able to do that as soon as possible. And so the recommendation for that is that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council delegate its powers of appointment of a returning officer and an assistant returning officer to the CAO, and that's pursuant to Section 4(1)(c) of the Municipal Elections Act. For, whoops, it's not, seems to be going. Okay, there we go. The third decision that is required by council relates to the list of electors. The Municipal Elections Act offers 3 options. A is to conduct an enumeration. B is to use the list prepared in the most recent federal or provincial election or an election held pursuant to the Act. And C is any permanent register of electors established and maintained for use in a federal or provincial election. That last option has been used in all of the recent elections. It appears to be the best option because it is the most up-to-date list. It's maintained by Elections Nova Scotia, and it updates the register on a regular basis. And so therefore, the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council approve the use of the permanent register of electors established and maintained by Elections Nova Scotia as the basis for the list of electors for the Municipality of the County of Kings in the municipal election 2024, and that's per Section 30, subsection 2, subsection C of the Act.
Yanni, are you open to taking questions now, or should we wait to the end?
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong, did you want to wait to the end or ask now? It's your call. Doesn't matter? Okay. I've already interrupted, so we might as well go.
I just had a question about the advance polls, and I guess my question is, are we going to be doing paper ballots as well as online voting, or is it going to be strictly online? Because if it's online, advance polls aren't really necessary, aren't they? The voting opens and it's open for like a week or 10 days or whatever, so advance polls are sort of out of the picture. So I guess my question is, are we doing a hybrid, or are we going to be doing strictly online?
Thank you for that question. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Armstrong. I will be bringing a report to Council separately on the voting method. The choice is up to Council. And so I'm still doing some research and making lots of inquiries to see what the best option is that staff will be recommending. And then it's Council's decision which method it chooses. Now, it is correct that if we were to go electronic only, the advance poll day is really, it's a formality that Council needs to set the date. And it would be the first day that electronic voting starts, whichever is the day that we select for the advance poll day. That is correct.
Today, as per your recommendation number 1, but if in the future we decide to go with strictly electronic, this becomes moot.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Good question, Councillor. Carry on, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the fourth decision relates to the date for amendments to the list of electors. The Act states that on or before the date chosen by Council, on the advice of the returning officer, the preliminary lists and amendments are to be provided to the returning officer. For the 2020 municipal election, the date was set at 6 weeks before ordinary polling day. So in 2024, that would be September the 6th, 2024. In 2020, that seemed to have worked well, so we'd like to recommend again that we set that date for 6 weeks prior to election day. An earlier date would not provide enough time to review the list, to amend the list. And the proposed date does allow the returning officer to provide the amended list to candidates so that they can use it for campaigning purposes. And so, therefore, the recommendation is, and this is per section 38(1) of the Act, that Committee of the Whole recommend that Municipal Council set September 6, 2024 as the date by which the amended list of electors is to be provided to the returning officer. And then the final decision at this point, I will be coming back, as I mentioned, relates to the tariff of fees and expenses. The Act states that Council shall, by resolution, make a tariff of fees and expenses to be paid to any person for services and expenses under the Act, and Council may delegate its authority to the clerk or the CAO. We are recommending delegating the authority to the CAO, and in that case, the returning officer would prepare that tariff and submit it to the CAO for consideration. And so the recommendation for that final decision is per section 139, subsection 1A of the Act, that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council delegate to the CAO its authority to make, revise, and amend the tariff of fees and expenses, and provide for a method of rendering and verifying accounts for payment relating to the municipal election 2024. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's as stated in the Municipal Elections Act. In terms of alternatives, as stated, we're not recommending October the 12th as the date for the advance poll day because it is during Thanksgiving weekend. In terms of the appointment of a returning officer and an assistant returning officer, Council may choose to do those appointments. We're not recommending any alternatives to the list of electors. It does seem to be the most reliable and up-to-date list. We're also not recommending alternatives for the date for amendments to the list of electors. And in terms of the tariff of fees and expenses, Council may make the tariff. Financial implications, we really won't know a budget estimate until we know what the voting method is going to be. As I'm sure you can imagine, a hybrid will give us a very different budget estimate than if it would be, let's say, electronic voting only. So I will be coming back to you with that. And I'm hoping to be able to do that in December. So far, it's proven difficult to find time to work on that RFD, so it may not be until January, but I'm aiming for December. And I'm more than happy to take any more questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Yanni? Relatively straightforward stuff. Yanni, are you recommending we do all the motions as a bulk, or shall we approach them one by one?
We could certainly do them as a bulk. They've all been read and probably fairly straightforward. So if Committee of the Whole is okay with that, we can certainly do it that way.
Okay. Seeing that there are no lights, I would just ask if anyone has any issues with any of the proposed motions. We could break that one out if you felt the need, or are we comfortable proceeding with all the motions at once? Oh, Councillor Hurdle.
I was just wondering, Yanni had stated that the election is every 4 years, but how is that possible when it's only been a year of council?
Yes, I know. We all feel that way. Yes, for some of us, it actually has only been a short period of time.
That's true.
It certainly flies by. So with that, all the motions have been read. Is there any discussion on any of the motions? I actually haven't had them moved and seconded, so I look for a mover to move the block. Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Killam. Any discussion on the motions as moved and seconded? Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise of recommending these motions to council, please vote now. And again, we'll have an opportunity to review these in council in December. And we appreciate, Yanni, your work on all this, because there's a lot of rules. So we appreciate you keeping us on side of them all. The motions carry unanimously. Thank you, council. Next, we have the economic development strategy. I believe Deputy CAO Frost is approaching the podium to give us the rundown on the strategy, which is in your package on page 33.
Deputy Mayor, good morning, Council. So I'm going to be presenting today on behalf of Christine. Christine is recovering from illness and doesn't have much of a voice. So this item has come to Council or committee last month, maybe 2 months ago now, and certainly some revisions and additional work has been done before we brought it back here today. So the intent is, of course, to discuss the economic development strategy, present it to the committee of the whole for recommendation to Municipal Council. So Council adopted a strategic plan back in September of 2021, and which was recently updated in March 2023. Economic development is one of the key strategic priorities that was identified in that strategic plan, one of our 5 pillars. The development of the economic development strategy for the county was included in the 2021 strategic plan, and then again included in the 23 strategic plan revisions. The focuses included for our economic development in the revised strategic plan included industrial and manufacturing park development, attraction and promotion, growth center development, broadband initiatives, and improvements in infrastructure and related to economic development. So like the other 4 pillars, of course, economic development is closely connected with the other key strategic priorities. So in the economic development strategy that we've brought to you today, we started with 4 guiding principles, and those are basically land, processes, projects, and partnerships in economic development. So land connects to economic development in the terms of industrial manufacturing park development, development of growth centers, and basically ensuring that we're ready to receive any development that might come to Kings. So this would include things such as, of course, protecting agricultural land, improvement and development of road systems, infrastructure needed for the development, and of course allowable uses in different areas. Oops. I think I'm a little slide behind. The processes side of the economic development strategy looks at good governance and, of course, communications with residents and stakeholders, so ensuring that anybody that wants to do business with Kings County or in Kings County can do so. So all looking at all of our processes and how we improve upon those processes. We also want to clarify who to talk to when you're starting a business in relation to Kings County or have business-related questions. And of course, there's a lot of organizations that are in this space. We want to make sure that there is a good coordination in that process. Some of the projects that have economic development elements in them include the strategy for belonging, our active living strategy, and active Kings County AT plan, joint accessibility plan, regional recreation center, broadband telecommunications, and renewable energy. So of course, with some of our own plans, there is elements for each of them. In the strategy for belonging, and as an example, there's certainly assistance on developing businesses to different communities. And same with all of our other plans and all of these other projects. There's certainly elements of economic development that need to be considered. Partnerships and economic development is our next point in our strategic plan, and that is to continue to build strong relationships with our partners in economic development. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of people that are involved in this space, so obviously Valley Wren being a very important one here in the Valley, and there's other economic development organizations, there's business organizations such as the Annapolis Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Women's Business Network. Of course, there's community organizations, our First Nations partners, and the community at large. So improvement in 4 guiding principles achieved through the 5 objectives that we've created for the economic development strategy. And those are basically to strengthen the role of the business development analyst, help make Kings County an attractive, inclusive place to be, make Kings County an easier place to do business, increase commercial land stock, and marketing Kings County. So this will be achieved through 5 objectives. So objective 1 is to strengthen the role of the business development analyst to be an internal and external resource for business development support, and then there's actions in each of these. Also included in your package is the implementation plan that has further detail. The implementation plan would be an internal document that we would use to implement all of these objectives and actions. So under objective 1, the 2 actions to be completed are to implement a standard operating procedure, for internal and external requests for business development support, to make sure that that is clear to everyone that is looking for support for economic development. And secondly, to build relationships with other economic development organizations, businesses, community organizations, and the community. Second objective has 7 actions attached to it, and the second objective of our plan is to help make Kings County an attractive and inclusive place to live, work, and play. So the first action is to support the implementation of the municipality's strategy for belonging. Second is the active living strategy, Active Kings County. Third is the joint accessibility plan. The fourth is support for the development of the regional recreation center, and some of the economic development spin-offs that could be achieved through that project should it proceed. Fifth would be the support and rollout of broadband to communities across the country. And even since the development of this particular document a couple of months ago, there's been a few things, such as the next one, opportunities to work with telecommunications providers to extend cellular coverage. So there's been some changes, so you likely know, by the provincial government in that regard. And lastly, support the development of renewable energy projects within Kings County, specifically our renewable energy projects. The third objective with 3 actions is to make Kings County an easier place to do business. So this certainly ties into some of the work that we've done on permitting and that type of thing, and the studies that we've had completed. So support discussions with the finance team to review the municipality's commercial taxation rates. Support the review of the municipality's policies, processes, and procedures to identify opportunities for efficiency improvement. And lastly, in this objective, to support the investigation of the benefits of implementing a process improvement program within the municipality. Fourth objective, which is to increase commercial land stock, and there's 5 actions attached to this particular objective. First one being to partner with the Planning and Land Use Department to support opportunities for business growth in the growth centers. Undertake studies related to the creation and sale of commercial lots in the municipality, and there's certainly, as you know, a few prime areas that are included in that. Lead the development and sale of commercial lots in the municipality. Lead the review of existing municipal land for development opportunities, and support the review of existing open space procedures in the subdivision bylaw from an economic development perspective. And the last objective in the economic development strategy is to market Kings County, and there's 5 actions attached to this objective. First is to partner with IT and revamped website to include economic development data and information so that it's more readily available to the community. Partner with communications to develop marketing materials for business attraction and retention. This would also be in coordination with the Valley Wren. partner with the Valley Wren to employ their land asset database for inquiries and lead generation. Partner with Valley Wren to implement the strategic tourism for areas and regions, which you know is the STAR program, including exploring the benefits of the implementation of a marketing levy. And lastly, support efforts to increase awareness of key sectors in Kings County, including agriculture, manufacturing, and healthcare services. So Christine did quite a bit of work on engagement in the community and met with a number of different organizations and other partners that would be interested in economic development. So she had meetings with certainly the Chamber of Commerce, Close Cap Ventures, the Valley Wren, and and the neighboring municipal units. The developers provided feedback through the KPMG report that we had completed last spring, I guess it came, and shared and received feedback from internal departments. So certainly talked to everybody here about how economic development can support what they do. No surprise, I suspect, on the consultation feedback, the issues that were raised were related to housing, transit, tourism and accommodations. Warehouse and cold storage is something that we've been looking at for a couple of years, and meeting and conference space and cellular coverage. So again, I would say all things that this council has discussed in one way, shape, or form. So the implementation of this plan, if approved, recommended to council, would be to post to the municipal website, information session with partner organizations and applicable staff. So we would like to hold a session and bring anyone interested in to talk about what our focus will be from an economic development perspective. And then implementation of the actions based on the draft implementation plan, which has been included in your package as well. The economic development strategy, of course, like our strategic plan, is intended to be a living document that is updated as projects progress. So with that, I'm certainly open for questions, Deputy Mayor, and provide the recommendation that Committee of the Whole would recommend the Municipal Council approve the economic development strategy as attached to the November 21st, 2023 request for decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frost, for your standing in for the presentation this morning. Councillor Hurdle, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, one of the most common things I hear from people, and it's and the number of times per week, is a complaint about the ease in conducting business in Kings County. So objective number 3, and looking at the actions, I often hear those who are trying to develop, they hear a yes or no, but in improv there's oftentimes a yes and or a no but we're oftentimes lacking in that, and that may be a requirement due to some of the regulations around the role of those in planning. But is there opportunity to implement a role for some sort of development navigator, where a navigator who can take and understand the objectives and the desires of a developer coming through a permitting process or a development agreement, so as to provide that yes and or no but, as opposed to just a flat yes or no?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hurdle, I would say that's really what our planners and development officers do. But yes, there's definitely processes, something that we're looking at, and that's what was included in the KPMG report. So again, we're looking at how we receive things, how we do everything as far as, and it is a lot about permitting and development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In District 1, there's a lot of rural places that don't have cell coverage, and not only is it dangerous, but it makes us less attractive and less competitive business-wise. I noticed that it's in objective number 2, but it's way down on the list, number 6, number 5, and number 6. Wondering how we can boost that, get it pumped up to maybe 2 or above recreation even. not that recreation is not important, it's totally important, but I think the safety of constituents is more important. So how could we address that in a better way?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Granger, I wouldn't say that the order is necessarily indicative of priorities, let's put it that way. I mean, they're numbered, but they're going to be happening, a lot of them simultaneously.
Okay.
I'm just looking here, cell coverage, if I can find it. So certainly, as you know, I mean, cell coverage is a large issue with all over Nova Scotia, and there has been some recent announcements by the provincial government. Can't remember the number, is a large number that they've provided to improve coverage, which they're providing to, of course, the service providers. So it'll be interesting to see what that does, but a lot of our role will be advocacy and working with the companies themselves, and what it will come down to, I suspect, is all about number of people. So, but that's something that we need to work on to make sure that there's coverage right across. So I wouldn't say that there's priorities. This particular item is considered to be ongoing. So it's not like we're saying it's down the road. We're saying that we need to be doing it now.
Good to know. If I may, another question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. As far as the emergency part of it, rural emergency services would have a harder deal. Is there any way that we can advocate, or should we have our emergency services, like our fire departments, advocate with us to get better self-coverage in certain places so that it's not as dangerous?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Grenzer, I think that's what we all need to be doing, is advocating that we need better coverage, and that's something that's actually in Kings's strategic plan as well. So it's just something that we need to continue to do. That was certainly a lot of the discussion around from the provincial perspective when they decided to give funds to service providers. And certainly some of the flooding issues, some of the fire issues this summer came up in that phone coverage, and we've heard the discussions about the emergency alerts not going to people and that type of thing. So that's a lot of the discussion was around emergency services.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Councillor. Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a few items here with centering around housing for Kings County and possible opportunities that may exist out in the rural areas, and that's to do with things like reviewing the soil mapping, possibly, and I think we should have a look at, again, the realignment of the A1, A2 zone maybe on the North Mountain for sure, but maybe the South Mountain. There's limitations as to being able to build on areas that should be able to be built on and zoned, not according to the soils and the restrictions around A1. And also, I was wondering if Council had the appetite to look at revisiting the pre-94 lots that have been eliminated in the last review, but there are out there, and maybe another way of utilizing them with respect to offering opportunities for housing with restrictions on how we do that. But I just wanted to throw those out. And of course, cell coverage is a big issue up on our area in the North Mountain too. But I just wanted to see if there's any update on those issues, or whether Council has any appetite to review anything that I mentioned here.
I don't know if staff can speak to Council's appetite,
Yeah,
but maybe they can address them.
Sorry, I guess I should direct it to Council, but just wondering if there's any discussion in what you're presenting over those areas.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, that would certainly be a planning item, Councillor Killam. So that would be something that you would bring up with PAC. This, I mean, the economic development strategy is certainly, they run together, but there's a separation as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anything further on the CIO or Deputy CIO's presentation? Okay. So the motion, sorry, I'm gonna find my paper here. It's on the screen, so I don't need my paper. The motion is the Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council approve the Economic Development Strategy as attached to the November 21st, 2023 request for decision. The CIO and I have already noted there's a couple formatting issues, so those will be taken care of.
Probably my fault.
No, it's okay. Thank you for owning up then, Deputy CIO. It's completely your fault. So with the exception of those minor detail things, I would look for someone to move this motion. Councillor Granger, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion? Seeing none, I would look for you to vote either in favor or against at your earliest convenience now. Councillor Harding, did you intend to vote in favor? Yes. Then the motion is unanimous. Thank you very much. Shifting gears a tiny bit with our CAO, moving into talking about sewer and sewer lines, a big issue of late. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Conrad, when you are ready to go.
I see the capital growth one, but I don't see.
I'll turn your mic off.
Good morning. I am here this morning to present two back-to-back presentations. Both deal with our relationship with regional sewer. So as we know, the municipality, broadly speaking, has two wastewater systems, our own municipal system and our own regional system. The regional system operates with partners. Typically what happens is our municipal collection system with the regional system, that is, collects from the peripheral, brings it into a common transmission line, takes that into, in this instance, into Kentville. So all of the Colebrook area and the town of Kentville and the eastern portion of New Minas, empty their collection systems or their collection piping into a main, force main. It's a combination of 18-inch and 8-inch lines that run between RG5, it's a regional pump station in Kentville beyond the Justice Center, through to the regional sewer treatment plants, the regional sewer treatment plant in New Minas. Unfortunately, those lines that run between Kentville and New Minas under pressure have experienced, we were saying in our briefing notes, 8. This weekend we had 2 additional breaks, so we're now at 10 breaks. So basically that's where we are. The first is a briefing, not an RFD. It's a requirement under the Procurement Act that I come to council when I do something under sections 8.8 and 8.9 of the Procurement Act. So because of these breaches, now 10 in the line, we've engaged, or I've engaged, some professional services through CBCL. So CBCL was involved previously in these sections of 18 and 8-inch lines in terms of bringing them up to a tender specification. It's not a one sectional line, there's different sections of the line. Some of them were updated in 2011 and 14 with HDPE or plastic. They seem to be functioning fine. It's the older sections of the main lines that are ductile iron that are now failing. So one section, initially in around 2019, CBCL designed 2 sections. One eventually went to tender in 2022, and so that's at 100% design. The second one did not go to tender in 2022, which is about 95% design. In 2022, we didn't proceed. We deferred that budget to the desludging and the aeration upgrades underway at the regional sewer plant. So the balance of the main line between the pump station located at the Justice Center and Eves Hollow, as I say, is experienced now, this was written unfortunately on Thursday or Friday, from 8 to 10 since September 26. As a result of those breakages, so there's a fair amount of wastewater that is transmitted, again, from the Coldbrook area, virtually, not entirely, but virtually most of Kentville, and a large portion of the eastern section of the village of New Minas. A large amount of sewer. When it breaks, we have a wetland, we have a dike, we have the Cornwallis River. So as a result of those breakages, Environment and Climate Change Canada has issued a direction to the municipality. In terms of what's required under that direction, we had to file a short-term management plan and a longer-term plan. The short-term plan has involved a series of steps that we take to mitigate spillage to the river and the wetlands during breakages. So we monitor, so all of that flow that runs through the line, which some days is up to 1 million gallons a day, there's flow meters on that. So if we see a dip in the flow meter, which we happened to see the other day, we suspect something is going on. Brad's Director Kerrigan's crew as well walk that trail on a daily basis as part of the short-term plan. We have Vector trucks on standby to work with our own Vector truck, and previously we've used tanker trucks. So when we discover a break, we shut RG5 down. It's a very large wet well. We take Vector trucks and vacuum that out so there's no sewer in the line. And if the Vector trucks can't keep up, we put that into a tanker truck. We either take the tanker or the Vectors to usually Aldershot, another one of the municipality's sewer treatment plants, and discharge the sewer there. So there's nothing in the line. There's also some commitments that we've made to Environment and Climate Change Canada related to removal of standing water after a break. The longer term plan, we've indicated to Environment and Climate Change Canada that we've re-engaged CBCL to update designs and manage the procurement process. So largely my decision to re-engage CBCL, and what I'm here this morning, is to relay that decision related to them designing 100% of one of the sections and 95% of a second section. So there appeared to me to be some scales of economy of not going out to the market, but to use that sunk cost and update those designs. So in terms of updating them, we've added a couple of components. One is a geotechnical report. So they are about, if they're not, they're about to be on site with a geotechnical crew. And basically what that will determine, because we are talking about a creek, a dike, and a wetland, whether some sections should be directional drilled compared to a traditional open trench of installing the 18-inch and the 8-inch lines. So what's the best installation method? We've also, we're looking at modifications to the 8-inch companion line. So there's multiple lines. There's an 18, there's an 8, and there's a small section of 4-inch line that may be involved as well. And so there's a re-examination of those, and there's also, although they were 100% designed or 95% designed in around 2019, we know we're going through quite a significant population increase. So the engineers are looking at population numbers relative to the size of the line, and just to make sure that the specification in the tender document is adequately sized. So in terms of procurement related matters, why I'm here, it's a sole source provider. CBCL was selected, and I've paraphrased the two sections of the procurement policy. So section 8.8 states that, among other things here with the ellipses, that lack of services may threaten public or private property or the environment. So I certainly felt that that was relevant. And that 8.9 says that authorizations of this nature must be reported to council. So I'm here this morning to do that. In terms of the CBCL contract, we're looking at about $63,400 in lump sum payments for design related services. The inspection, the contract that we signed, is a per unit cost, so that's an estimate at $10,000. We have a bit of a budget contingency there at 15%, and then we've added on our non-recoverable HST, so bringing in at around $90,000, $88,028. In terms of the financial implications, we're dealing with tangible capital assets that some of them were installed either in the mid-'80s and even before then. So we're still looking at who owns exactly what. So in terms of coming back to you today To determine that, we don't have the information at this point in time. The net cost sharing after sharing levels is determined will be reported to Municipal Council. So once we determine exactly which sections of the line we own, we will come back to Council. And there's also sufficient budget to cover that $88,000 in a related regional sewer account. So therefore, I'm here this morning not to ask for money for a change. Money's there to fund the engineering work at least. We'll certainly be back with the capital part of it, but the engineering budget is in place. It's more of a reporting of the sole source of CBCL to carry out the updated designs. So a recommendation here in front of you this morning is that Committee of the Whole receive the Emergency Procurement of Design Services Regional Sewer Lines briefing dated November 21st, 2023 for information. I believe the Deputy and I discussed earlier, there are 3 related presentations this morning, so I think for transparency and be equitable among all the parties that we probably want to present all of them and then have you look at the total picture before voting on them individually, if that's agreeable.
I see no protests from my colleagues. I think we're okay. Stay tuned on the recommendation. So we'll move into item D, Municipal Capital Growth Program application. Very much related to the presentation we just received. Just for those waiting online, we're just waiting for a presentation to load up here.
My bad, excuse me, Council, but we've been doing last-minute updates and those didn't get put in the right folder. I'm sure that's me.
Look at our CAOs accepting responsibility for all the big things this morning. So proud. Thank you, guys.
Second presentation is same subject matter, and the intent here this morning is to inform Committee of the Whole about a new provincial capital cost sharing program. So we have sewer lines, 18-inch force main, 8-inch force main, that have unfortunately broken 10 times since late September. How are we going to pay for them? So here's one opportunity for you to consider. Brand new growth fund put out by the province of Nova Scotia. So the intent is to bring you up to speed on that and hopefully obtain a motion from Council supporting the submission of a joint application. So what is being proposed is that the municipality, the town of Kentville, and the village of New Minas submit an application to install the new transmission lines located within the Harvest Moon Trail. New program, $32 million provincial program that if you qualify and you are approved, you can receive up to 50% of the eligible costs. The project categories include water and wastewater, accessibility, brownfield redevelopment, and climate change adaptation. The program is open to all towns and municipalities. There's a caveat here in that applications from villages require confirmed support by the municipality. So if a village wishes to apply, it has to have a motion of council supporting that. The filing deadline is not far away. It's December 13th, 2023. In terms of the application content, two primary considerations. One is a submission of detailed cost estimates, and the second is a motion of council. So as indicated in the last presentation, We've engaged CBCL. Part of their deliverables, in addition to geotechnical work and figuring out whether it's directional drilling or open trench installation, population and the size of the line, they are delivered to us, prior to December 13th, capital cost estimates that we could include in this funding application. The larger line is the 18-inch is operated by the municipality. The smaller companion lines installed near the regional lines, so basically in the same trench, are owned by the town. Portions of the lines are comprised of ductile iron and require replacement. So this is why it's not in the right folder. I was in here this morning updating this one from 8 to 10, as you see. So as mentioned, we need to go back and just make sure that linearly we know who owns what line. We work through in the regional system a technical subcommittee, so it's a staff committee comprised of engineers in the village, the town, and our own departments. And so they've been meeting talking about this, and as staff, we have agreed to present to our respective councils that we file a singular application to the Nova Scotia Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the replacement of these wastewater lines. So my understanding is this would be our primary application. We would not get into an internal competitive scenario where one of us is applying for multiple applications. We're all sort of recommending to our councils and our commission that we file just one application. So the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing has indicated that joint applications are actually encouraged, but they need to be filed by a lead applicant. So again, we would come back at some point in time, but sections of the line that are owned by the town would be cost shared differently than the sections of line that are cost shared among all of the partners in regional. So there's a bit of work to do in that area. If approved, 50% eligible costs could be funded. The net share of the capital costs cannot be determined until the ownership of lines is confirmed. And the net share of capital costs for the municipality will be included in a related updated 5-year capital budget. So we do have components of this already in our 5-year capital budget, but this will need to be updated. In terms of the alignment to our strategic plan, I've indicated here, it's to support infrastructure enhancement in growing communities. So under the pillar of strong communities. Under the pillar of environmental stewardship is to replace aged lines that are at risk of further failure. And under financial sustainability is to offset the cost of expensive infrastructure upgrades. In terms of implementation, we see this flowing. First step is to receive the capital cost estimates from CBCL. Excuse me. Second step is on or before December 13th to file the application. Third step is to confirm the line ownership and cost sharing percentages among the regional partners, then prepare the updated 5-year regional sewer capital budget, and then proceed with line replacements. With respect to engagement, it's been a joint initiative between the municipality, town, and village, and the councils and commissions are being involved in the decision-making process. As Councillor Hurdle can attest, I believe, and I know Councillor Davison attends the regional meetings, this has been a topic at the last couple of meetings of how would I phrase this, that the municipality and the town and the village coalesce around funding programs to try to collectively lessen the cost for each of the parties. So the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council resolve to submit a joint application on behalf of the municipality, the town of Kentville, and the village of Numinus under the Municipal Capital Growth Fund for the replacement of sections of wastewater force main lines between the town of Kentville and the regional sewer treatment plant in Numinus. And again, with your indulgence, would suggest that we hold this in abeyance until Mr. Livingston presents a third related, or a somewhat related, not to sewer, but to another application or for support that we've received. So you would have all the information before making your motions.
That's a very good idea. Come on up, Mr. Livingston.
Good morning, Committee of the Whole. So the third and related presentation and recommendation is related to a letter of support for the Village of Canning. So I won't get into too much detail since the CAO just covered the particulars of the program itself, but the Municipal Capital Growth Program, the provincial $32 million fund, 50% cost sharing, an application deadline of December 13th, and the next piece that is, I guess, incremental is that the villages within the Municipality of County of Kings require confirmation of support from the municipality to accompany any applications they make to the program. So the project that the Village of Canning is looking to apply to the program is their Summer Street sidewalk project. So they've issued a letter which is appended to the RFD, and it details some of the particulars of the project. Some high notes are to improve pedestrian safety, create access to schools, sports fields, and trails. Completes a loop of the downtown Chapel Road, Summer Street, and J. Jordan Road, and has a cost of just under $1.2 million. Is already approved for federal active transportation funding of $718,000, and they're looking to apply into the Municipal Capital Growth Program for 35% of the project costs, or $418,839. The remaining just under $60,000 would be financed from village resources. So quick point, on a call with stakeholders, the province indicated that any municipalities or I guess applicants in general looking to apply multiple projects were asked to rank order the priority of those projects, and while the village's project would be separate and distinct from any applications by the municipality, it seemed prudent to, where we are asked to provide a letter of confirmed support, that there may be some recognition of prioritization between the project in regional sewer and the sidewalk project proposed by the village. With that in mind, the recommendation would be the third recommendation of the batch, that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council approve the issuance of a letter to provide confirmed support to the Village of Canning to accompany their application for capital funding under the Municipal Capital Growth Program, and to identify the joint application by the Municipality of the County of Kings, Town of Kemptville, and Village of New Minas as the first priority project application. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Any questions for Mr. Livingston while he's in front of us? Okay. Any questions on any of the presentations for Mr. Conrad or Mr. Livingston on where we're at on these things? Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just wondering, 10 breaks in 1 month in September. Is it age, or is it materials, or is it a combination of not being proactive with the system? Just wondering what the problem was.
So I may flip this to Director Kerrigan, but I think you've, I'm sorry, through you, Deputy, to Councillor Granger. I think your question is answered through your phrasing. So it's a combination of older ductile iron, age. So it's the substance of the material and the age of the material. It's admittedly something we've known about. There was a conscious decision of the partners and this municipality to divert the budget that was associated with the replacement of that line into what was deemed a higher priority with the aeration and desludging of the plant in New Minas.
Great, thank you. I have another question, if I may. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So the whole province has $32 million to divide amongst itself. How does the municipality advocate for that to be increased? It's actually, that's a crazy number. Halifax could use that in no time, just them, let alone the rest of the province. So how do we advocate for more money?
It's kind of a political question too. I mean, staff might have opinions on it, but you know, there's lots of options available. Write a letter, communicate that with our 3 MLAs in Kings County, and ask them to push it up the chain. You're not wrong. You're very right in that it's not enough money for the 49 municipal units in the province to share, to invest in the amount of infrastructure that is under pressure. It's 49 municipalities plus the villages too. So you're right. Yeah. So that's something council can work on. Staff, did you wish to weigh in, or are you?
No, I think that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Councillor? Any questions?
No, thank you.
I knew that was going to happen. Okay, I have some more. Councillor Hurdle, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I see the total project cost and basically the hopeful breakdowns, but is there, assuming we meet the requirements, is there a certainty that we get the funding, or is this just kind of hopeful, I guess?
You're referencing the sewer project, not the sidewalk project?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I expect it's a grant process, but the CAO would know.
Thank you, Deputy. Through to the councillor, it is a competitive process, so it's not just file and you will be approved. When we've gone through the program literature, and several of our staff members attended a video conference on program orientation, there's several of the metrics that we believe we meet. To deal with population growth, to deal with water and sewer to service population growth, those types of things. So hopefully we're well positioned to do well in a competitive process.
And one follow-up question, well, not a follow-up, but a separate question. There's a line, the shared expense is yet to be determined and will require confirmation of ownership. I watched Kentville's equivalent of Committee of the Whole the other evening, and they had talked about a asset that they thought they owned, but it was determined to be regional sewer. Has that been determined, or is that still in flux?
To the best of my knowledge, it's still being looked at. So,
Okay.
for example, several years ago, maybe in around 2011 or 12, we engaged consultants to help us place tangible capital assets on our books. And so we're looking for copies of that report to see which sections may or may not be mentioned in that report relative to ownership. So we're still working on it, at least on our end, but we've asked Kentville to do the same thing.
Thank you.
Good questions, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CAO, for your answers. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just wondering if part of the reason the line keeps breaking is it because it's pressurized? To Scott?
Again, Director Kerrigan perhaps can cut me off here, but my understanding from speaking with him and other engineers, it's certainly, for example, when they're re-energizing the line, they are throttling the pressure up slowly, so there's not a hammer or there's not a one direct shot, but that could have a bearing. Director Kerrigan was telling me this morning it's very thin on the bottom of the pipe, but you may wish to add something to that question.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, what I can add is that the pressure would certainly make a difference. If this was just a gravity sewer, then we probably wouldn't be seeing the issues that we have, but the combined age, material, and the fact that the line is under pressure all contribute to those breaks. And since I have the mic open at this point, just wanted to confirm that the breaks that we found at the start of the weekend, I'll say the 9th break was fixed on Sunday morning, wrapped up around 1 o'clock, and I'm already following the news here with text to operational staff that the 10th break has been now sealed, and they're in the process of standing down factor trucks that were there to support the removal of the sewer in RG5.
The other part of the question, if there's 2 lines, is it the same line breaking all the time, or both lines?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, it's the 18-inch that seems to be the worst at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Conrad. Thank you, Mr. Kerrigan. Any further questions on these 3 issues before us? At this point, I think if we could go back to the first item on the emergency procurement of design services, to get that recommended motion in front of us. Do them in order. There we are. So the motion reads, the Committee of the Whole received for information the briefing entitled Emergency Procurement of Design Services, Regional Sewer Lines, dated November 21st, 2023. Is there a mover of this motion? Moved by Councillor Meisner, seconded by Councillor Killam. Any discussion on this issue, item, motion? Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. The second motion regarding Municipal Capital Growth Program application reads that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council resolve to submit a joint application on behalf of the municipality, the town of Kentville, and the village of New Minas under the Municipal Capital Growth Fund for the replacement of sections of wastewater force main lines between the town of Kentville and the regional sewer treatment plant in New Minas. Do I have a mover of that motion? Moved by Councillor Davison, seconded by Councillor Harding. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. And our final item under number 7, administration, is the request for a letter of support from the Village of Canning. And the motion reads that the Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council approve the issuance of a letter to provide confirmed support to the Village of Canning to accompany their application for capital funding under the Municipal Capital Growth Program, and to identify the joint application by the Municipality of the County of Kings, Town of Kentville, and Village of New Minas as the first priority project application. Mover of the motion, Councillor Hurdle, seconded by Councillor Granger. Thank you. Further discussion on this particular item? Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. And before we move to item 8, I just wanted to note we are being deftly supplied these motions by a new staff member over in the clerk's chair, Chris Ritchie, who's joining us for his first, I believe it's your first council meeting today. I don't want to jinx it, but it's seamless so far. So doing a wonderful job over there. Thank you very much for being with us, and welcome to council. Well, Committee of the Whole, technically, but council in a minute. All right. Item 8, we have a councillor item in front of us this morning. Councillor Armstrong, did you wish to lead us into your item?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I brought this forward. My item that's in the agenda is pretty self-explanatory. There have been incidents that I've been hearing about from EHS, Fire, and RCMP about delays in responses to calls that are being hampered by a lack of civic signage outside of homes. And what I'd like to do is make a recommendation. Section 9, gosh, I'm getting all mixed up here. In bylaw 96, in section 9, it's very specific in what is required for signage, the high visibility signs that are available at a minimal cost from Lions clubs, and where they're supposed to be put, how they're supposed to be put, but for our staff to try and police this signage on every property in Kings County is impossible. So what I would like to do is to enable a violation to be enforced if a member of emergency services notifies us that they were delayed because the property was not properly marked or marked at all. So hopefully you understand. If not, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions for the councillor related to her councillor done item? Okay. I see none. Councillor, you have a proposed motion. Did you wish to read it?
The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that Bylaw 96, Section 23 violations be enforced if emergency services provide information that a property was unmarked or not properly marked as per our bylaw.
Okay.
I so move.
Is there a second for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Meisner. Is there any staff who wish to weigh in at this point in time? Is it a relatively straightforward enforcement measure? Would be my question, I guess, on the motion in terms of what enforcement looks like. So perhaps could turn it over to Trish to speak on what that enforcement looks like. Or Terry. Terry's here with us. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a way of background, perhaps it would be useful for Council to know the background of the Civic Addressing Bylaw. Civic Addressing Bylaw came into effect in Kings County in 2011, roughly 20 years after we started civic numbering. Civic numbering occurred in 1990-91 in preparation for 911 and 92. So about 20 years later, we took advantage of the MGA's ability for us to adopt this bylaw to assist staff. Civic numbering is very technical in its requirements, from a GIS perspective to proper street naming, community naming, and just how are we going to do that in a consistent manner. So that bylaw was also seen as a way to help encourage property owners to self-identify in a way that helps emergency services see them, particularly at night, given we are a rural municipality. So if you look at the bylaw, it certainly does say there are certain stipulations that we would like to see as part of the bylaw on how a civic number is posted. So things like visibility from the road itself, not the structure, given a lot of our houses are set back a fair distance. So enforcement of this bylaw is sort of multifaceted. It's not a bylaw that lives in my department. It's, when you read the bylaw, it's because of its technical responsibility and reporting to the province and EMO, it lives with the GIS team. So the Civic Addressing Coordinator is the administrator of this bylaw. Having said that, the National Building Code and the regulations permit our building officials to step in and do enforcement as part of an occupancy permit. So that regulation allows us, for that process, to step in and withhold an occupancy permit should the structure not be compliant to the bylaw for posting. Other than that, it's going to be complaint-based, as the councillor had indicated in her presentation. So we do rely upon emergency services to let us know if there is a concern or an ongoing concern with any particular street name, civic number. Having said that, it has come up, I know, 2 times in the past year at the Fire Advisory Committee, and they meet this Thursday. Yes, this Thursday. And certainly we would encourage all emergency services to let us know if there is an ongoing situation on posting. But without specifics, we can't do that. Hopefully that answered the enforcement part of that. And again, cost of the civic numbering is not huge if you go to the Lions Club. I think it's $20 for a double-sided. So again, softer approach would be the way that we would do that, with a letter from the coordinator going to the property owner that's been identified, encouraging compliance so that they can reap the benefits of being found during an emergency. Yes, hopefully that was helpful.
That was helpful. Thank you. Councillor, do you have any thoughts or just go to questions?
No, I'm happy with the way it is. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Probably it's important to do this in light of the fact that we have a problem with response time, especially with ambulance services to properties that they don't need to be, once they do get there, that they don't have to look around for where they're going. Just a thought. I just wanted to get that tongue-in-cheek in there regarding the response time, or the lack of good response time from ambulance services.
Mm-hmm.
It's a problem.
Yep, thank you. Trish?
Sorry, through you again. Just wanted to point out, based on the conversation at Fire Services, in the next tax bill newsletter, we will be having a reminder to all taxpayers that posting your civic number is really important. So there is going to be some added literature in the tax bill.
Thank you, Director Javerick. Councillor Hurdle, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm a little concerned this motion reads as a receiving the report from the service provider would cause enforcement action rather than an investigation for enforcement. And since the emergency service providers may or may not be aware of the specifics of the bylaw, that they may not be able to cause this to be an enforcement action. But even going back, the intent of the motion reads as though we're trying to do something that is already, in my understanding, open and available to anyone in the public who has an enforcement concern where they can call and report an issue. So the motion perhaps is a duplication of what is already available. I know this is probably entering into debate, but...
It's been moved and seconded, so you're, it's debate.
So my concern is this is a redundant motion of something that's already available, and then applying enforcement knowledge and authority to the emergency service providers who may not have specific understanding of how the bylaw is written. And so there's some potential flaws in this.
Thank you, Councillor. I have some similar concerns about the wording, but we can get to those once we hear from others on their thoughts on the intent. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just wondering if there is a penalty for not providing the proper marking or a fine?
I'll turn it over to Trish.
Through you, Deputy. It's a little complicated at the moment. This particular bylaw is not technically listed as a bylaw that we can directly issue an SOT, a summary offense ticket. So we would enter that if we ever got to the point, and again, we've not ever gotten to that point, if we got to the point where a ticket was felt to be the best route to try to gain compliance, the cost of that ticket to the individual is $237.50 through provincial court.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Might just leave your mic on, Trish. We'll see. Councillor Davison.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Few questions. This is kind of up my alley a little bit. So fire versus ambulance. Just quick comment. As paramedics, that's something we're never ever going to bring up to a supervisor, strictly because that is the last thing on our radar as far as paramedics go. Fire is a little different. If your house is on fire, likely we're going to that one that's on fire. So they may have a little extra more time to put in complaints. I can almost guarantee that we're not going to put complaints in, especially when people are on their worst day of their lives when we show up, and the last thing we think about is civic addresses. We have ways of finding where these people are, civic addresses prior to or after the address that's not posted. So again, I'm just not quite sure about the whole, I think I'm on sort of on the fence with how it's written with violation. It just seems like the writing to me is a little awkward. It just seems like we're going to violate these people that may not have the education. So I think that a discussion with education over enforcement might be something that we should discuss as far as a council. There's a lot of discussion on this. There's a lot of people that don't have civic addresses, and people do not think about civic addresses until they call an ambulance or the fire department, the police department. So I would hope that we can discuss this a little more for education purposes more than violation purposes.
Thank you, Councillor Davison. Councillor Harding, go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I've been listening to the discussion. I see both sides, but I would like to see a little bit more of, is what Kevin's talking about, a little softer, you know, to start with and work on this up the road. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong.
It's not that, the only reason that violation is there because violation is the name of the Section 23. I'm not saying that it's up to the person that would go out to this place and say, you know, you don't have the proper signage up. I'm not saying that our bylaw enforcement officers would go out with ticket in hand and write it. I think it is an education piece, but if people are not, if our bylaw enforcement officers in our county are not being made aware of the fact that there are delays in responding to emergency situations because of lack of signage, then the issue is not being dealt with. So if it's a matter, this just basically puts in place to let our emergency responders know, you know, whether EHS would not do that, that's entirely up to them. But the option is there, because I've heard from EHS, you know, drivers and paramedics and stuff like that. And I've heard from fire departments. I know it's been brought up several times at the fire safety. And it just puts it on the radar of anybody who listens to our meetings that we need someplace, a mechanism to put in place, that if it's just a matter of education, that's fine. If it's a constant thing with the same people that, you know, we need to issue a ticket, then we have that option. But, you know, if this just brings it about as being something that tweaks people to maybe I should get the numbers out at the end of my driveway, then I feel that we've accomplished something. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, lots of lights here. What I will say is we've got a motion that's moved and seconded. If folks feel the desire to amend, that's always an option, or table until we get have further discussion at a later time, maybe have some information from staff as well. So those are some other options that council has before us. Councillor Armstrong has spoken twice. I'll go to Councillor Hurdle for the second time, and then Councillor Davison for the second time. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. At this time, I'm not prepared to support this motion, not because I don't appreciate the sentiment. I absolutely do. It's just the approach that I am taking issue with. If there's an emergency service provider and they notice an issue where they've stumbled across the scene in which they're trying to arrive, I don't think handing them a potential $230 ticket is necessarily the right approach. I'm more in favor of carrot over stick. This feels more like a stick approach, and I would be in preference of a motion that was geared towards the education of the emergency service providers to ensure that they are free to issue reports and complaints through our department and educate the public through various channels that we have in existence, like our social media, our tax bills, and even the newspaper. So at this time, I'm not prepared to support the motion as is, but I'm absolutely open to rewrite if the sentiments are similar.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davison.
Thank you, through you again, Deputy Mayor. So I do agree with what Councillor Hurl just said. I think we need to base this more on education. I also do agree with Councillor Armstrong. She has a wide aspect on paramedics and firefighters, obviously, with her family. We've complained about this for as long as I've been around as well. So every time we don't see a civic address, we are actually complaining in the ambulance to each other or trying to find places. It is an issue. I still believe that this needs to be written somewhat differently, and we need to base it more on education instead of violation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I see both sides of this. However, I think people need to advocate for their own safety and security. When your house is bought, or if you're getting a fire safety check, this should be part of that. Maybe in the tax bills, you get a reminder that if you don't have a number up, it's hard to be saved. But people do need to think for themselves. I understand that we need to help them do that sometimes, but the education part of it could be, fire departments putting it on their Facebook pages or their websites, the county putting it front page on our website. I am in favor of this. It needs to be brought to people's attention. The word violation is part of the section, so it's not that scary of a word. However, I do feel that it's not up to the emergency services people to have one more thing to think about. I do think it is more of a personal safety issue more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I have no further lights. We can call a question at this time and have a vote, or there's always the opportunity, we're 15 minutes to lunch. We could park this, and if the mover and seconder wish to discuss some of the conversation that's happened around the table and present some alternatives or amendments after lunch, I'd be also open to that. Not the usual way we do things, but I don't think there's any harm in that approach. Councillor Armstrong, I'll look to you as the mover. If you just wish to continue and call the question, that's your prerogative.
No, you can call the question.
Call the question. All right, question has been called. The recommendation is to Municipal Council. All in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. The motion carries with 6 in favor and 3 against. And this will come to Municipal Council for further discussion at our next regular meeting of Council. Okay, next item on our agenda today is committee and board reports. There were no written reports received. Are there any verbal reports to come before the meeting today? Yes. Councillor Harding, go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, sorry, I just shut you off for one.
Point, our last meeting, the only thing I have to report is that we're going to change our meeting dates to quarterly from monthly, and that's all I wanted to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a library report, but I think I'll wait until special counsel to give it so I can review my notes and be more prepared. Is there any other board or committee reports to come before the meeting? Okay, motion to receive Councillor Harding's very brief report, but we go through the motions anyway. The Committee of the Whole received the committee reports as provided verbally for information. Can I have a move of the motion? Moved by Councillor Meisner, seconded by Councillor Davison. All in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. Okay, thank you. Motion is carried. Item 10 is correspondence. I'll look for a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Meisner. All in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. And you'll note on the agenda, the correspondence is a letter from Yarmouth, the District of Yarmouth, not the town, regarding the exemption of volunteer emergency service providers from new fuel charges. And that is on page 57 of your package for you to read. At this point, we're at item 11, other business. Is there any other business to come before Committee of the Whole this morning? Okay. Any comments from the public? We don't have any public with us today. At this point, I look for a motion to adjourn, and we can move into special council. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Granger. All in favor or otherwise, please signify now. To adjourn. I think we'll go straight into special council if that's okay with folks, and then that way we can not have to come back after lunch, because we should be quick, I think, in special council. All right, we are adjourned, and I'll wait till staff give me the thumbs up, and then we'll start special council. Okay, we're good to go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Deputy Mayor Emily Lutz. Welcome to Special Council of the Municipality of the County of Kings. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. We'll begin this morning by taking roll call. For those new to council or listening online, there's a 10-second delay between when I request councilors press their buttons and the time in which their results come on the screen, which is now. All councilors are present, with the exception of Mayor Matart, who is off on sick leave. Could I have a motion to excuse the absence of Mayor Matart? Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Davison. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify now. The motion is carried. At this point, I look for an approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion from council to approve the agenda of today's meeting? Moved by Councillor Harding, seconded by Councillor Granger. Thank you. Discussion, amendments, additions, with deletions for the agenda. Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. While we await the vote, also would look for any councillor to disclose any conflict of interest issues they may have with the agenda in front of us. Relatively the same as our last agenda this morning for Committee of the Whole, so I'd be surprised if some came up between now and then. Item 4, Financial Services, amendments to policy FIN-05-013, interest rate and tax due date adoption. So this is a motion to adopt the amended policy with 7 days notice provided on November 6th. So you would remember at our November 6th meeting, we gave our notice. So this is the formal adoption process. So could I have a motion to adopt those amended due dates that are, of course, a result of the cybersecurity attack? Councillor Meisner is moving it, seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion on this item. Do we need a refresher? We're good to go. Okay. All in favor or otherwise, please signify now. Thank you, Council. Carries unanimously. Item 5 are recommendations from Committee of the Whole of today, November 21st, 2023. The first is regarding the Municipal Capital Growth Program application. If you're listening to this recording, I encourage you to go listen to the full presentation from our meeting this morning from Committee of the Whole. The motion reads, the Municipal Council resolved to submit a joint application on behalf of the municipality, the Town of Kentville, and the Village of New Minas under the Municipal Capital Growth Fund for the replacement of sections of wastewater force main lines between the Town of Kentville and the Regional Sewer Treatment Plant in New Minas. Do I have a mover of that motion? Moved by Councillor Killam, seconded by Councillor Davison. Thank you. All in favor, or sorry, any discussion? All in favor or otherwise, please signify now. And the second item under 5, the motion carries unanimously, is similarly an application to the Municipal Capital Growth Program, a request for letter of support from the Village of Canning. The motion reads, the Municipal Council approved the issuance of a letter to provide confirmed support to the Village of Canning to accompany their application for capital funding under the Municipal Capital Growth Program, and to identify the joint application by the Municipality of the County of Kings, Town of Kentville, and Village of New Minas as the first priority project application. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Meisner. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I encourage you to vote now, in favor or otherwise. And again, for further information and some of the discussion regarding these items, please refer to the Committee of the Whole recording and minutes. The motion carries unanimously. Is there any other business to come before today's meeting of Special Council? Councillor Hurdle.
As previously reported in Committee of the Whole, if anyone's looking for signs, they're available at colebrooklions.com, and they're $15 for a single, $20 for a double, and their number is available on the website.
Great information for the public to have. Thank you, Councillor. Any further other business to come before the meeting? Seeing none, we have no public in attendance today. Any motion to adjourn at this point would be in order. Motion made by Councillor Granger, seconded by Councillor Killam. All in favor or otherwise, please signify now. As always, thank you, staff, for your presentations, for your presence, for your contributions to the municipality. And council, as always, thanks for your thoughtful discussion, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. We are adjourned.